Hello everyone, welcome to this week's edition of the Crop Progress. We are here in Northwest Ohio. What would be sunny, but it's hazy a little bit today. We are right on the cusp of wheat harvest here in Northwest Ohio and looking forward to see what this harvest brings. I think expectations are probably average in terms of a yield. We'll just have to see what that brings here as we get closer to. We've been really dry here over the last month, so in terms of the overall world demand for wheat, it feels like there's plenty of stocks out there in terms of a world perspective. There's been a lot of volatility in terms of Russia and Ukraine and just the world wheat market here over the last year, so it's been challenging to manage in terms of risk and price and things of that nature, but overall sitting at $6.50, roughly $6.57 in terms of a cash price depending on where you're at in the country. So look forward to see what this wheat crop brings. It looks like we're off to a good start here in terms of harvest here, and we'll see what that has in store for us. So Jess, what are you seeing on the fertilizer agronomy side?
Thank you. So agronomically, there's not much we can do for this wheat crop before it comes off the field, but as soon as it comes off of the field, there are a couple considerations ahead of some double crop soybeans. Once it comes off the ground, there's going to be a lot of residue left on the soil surface, and inside that residue there are a lot of nutrients locked up. We want to be able to put those nutrients back into the crop, and one way we can do that would be with a residue management program. We can do that is with a product called BioReverse. It's a microbial package. It's going to colonize the residue, break it down, and unlock those nutrients for the next crop to use, specifically those double crop soybeans that will go in after this wheat field. We have made our way to a cornfield now in the next step of our crop tour in Northwest Ohio. So agronomically, taking a look at the crops, things are looking really solid. This field behind me is about a V9 growth stage, so we aren't too far off from tasseling at this point. A couple considerations going into tasseling is going to be making sure our nutrient program is sufficient to carry this crop through grain fill. One of the things that we really like to look at here is having enough nitrogen going into grain fill. So if we want to follow up with the foliar application of a slow release nitrogen, that will put this crop in a really great position for a high grain quality and a good yield. If we're a little bit earlier in the growth season, I would consider doing a phosphix application, because that's going to help a lot with the stress that the crops have been encountering this growing season. A lot of our growing area has been very dry conditions, and a lot of them have been faced with some hail damage. So if we have any of that going on in our field, consider a phosphix application. That will help with our stress relief and stress mitigation, helping that crop overcome everything it's been faced with so far. That's just better positioned a little bit earlier, closer to the V5, V6 growth stage.
From a national perspective across the Corn Belt, there's been known issues in terms of drought, in terms of weather and storm damage, and the market's definitely reflected that over the last 3 weeks for sure. We're definitely trading a weather market here. We saw spikes in the market there up to 6 to 620 in terms of D's futures, and then now back into the 5 to 550 range. So be cognizant of that and understand your marketing plan. Give your Anderson's rep a call. We'd be happy to talk through some of the risks that we see just in terms of this crop and the size of the crop that we're going to see. As we look at acreage, though, it feels like everywhere across the Corn Belt had a fairly good planting season in terms of enough time in terms of dryness and crop conditions there early spring to get the crop planted in a timely fashion, so that's a good thing. Stay buckled up and stay cognizant of your overall risk exposure. We think the Freedom and Max approach is a great way to manage some of that risk and give yourself some upside in these markets too. We think in this sort of an environment, that's a good place to be. We're sitting in a soybean field here that looks to me like it was planted the middle of May. Lack of moisture there through the months of May and most of June. Last week we did see some rainfall, which was much needed here in this area, and the beans have changed a lot since then, so that's been a good thing. It looks like there's more rain in the forecast as well. But overall, I mean, from an overall bean perspective here nationally, I think it's a huge debate on what this yield's going to be here as we move forward. From a national yield perspective, I think a lot of folks are thinking in that 151 to 153 range based on what we're seeing in terms of crop condition reports and things like that. But I think the big debate's going to be also on the demand side of things and what kind of demand we see here for this bean crop as we look at world stocks in terms of Brazil, Argentina, some of the other soybean producers, and then you look at the domestic side of the equation there too, just in terms of crush and the added crush that we see here over the next couple years and what that looks like. So a lot of things to think about in terms of the balance sheet and how that correlates to ending stocks, and that's what we're seeing in terms of volatility as well on the soybean side. A good place to maybe put targets in the soybean market in terms of limit orders. We think those are a great thing to use and gauge yourself off of if the market gives a a 20-cent or 30-cent spike one day, you're at least capturing some of that at a profitable level. So get in touch with your Anderson's merchant. We'd be happy to talk through this whole soybean dynamic with you and how we see it trending here over the next growing season, the rest of the growing season here as we close out.
Agronomically, this crop is looking pretty good. Like you had said, things are facing some seasonally dry conditions, and one way to combat that would be through a stress mitigation application like a phosphix, which is going to have those plant growth regulators, cytokinins, gibberellins, and auxins. Just like I said in the corn crop, it's going to help it overcome that stress and face these conditions that it's been faced with. We also have seen a lot of hail damage in the area. That phosphix application will also help mitigate the stress from the hail. This field behind us is about the V4 growth stage, still in the vegetative stages, so it will have received its first herbicide pass. So with that timing, just consider those 2 products to go in the tank with it. That's everything we have for today, so if you have any questions, reach out to your Anderson's representative for more information.